Meanwhile,
oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. He's dead. He's dead. Khomeini is dead. The supreme leader of the Islamic regime is dead. He's dead.
The largest Iranian populations outside of the Middle East. You see the gathering there behind her. Julia, how is the Iranian community responding?
Well, this gathering has only grown, Jessica, over the past few hours, since we've gotten here. It has amassed a large number of people, and the celebration is striking. We got here just moments after initial reports, initial rumors of the death of Ayatollah Khamenei had just started to trickle from Iran to this diaspora community, and people were jumping in excitement, hugging each other, crying, saying that basically they've been waiting 47 years for this very day, Jessica. It is the reason so many of them have come out here today. I want you to hear from one of them specifically his thoughts right after learning that the supreme leader of Iran was dead.
When is the last time you saw people in Israel and Iran dancing on the streets in excitement? And when is the last time you've ever heard of a country coming out and dancing because they're excited that foreign powers are attacking them?
With a message for every single American who voted for President Trump. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. God bless President Trump, God bless the US military, and God bless America. We can't wait until Iran is free and we can welcome you back to our country with open arms and be the allies that we used to be before the Islamic regime took over our country in 1979. That's it. Thank you. Thank you so much, and God bless America.
What's up, family? All right, we have to talk about what is hands down the biggest story in the world right now. These strikes on Iran by the United States and Israel because they cooperated. This wasn't some anti-American thing where America just went after Israel. Israelis wanted this. They cooperated with the United States to help this happen. And because if you've been watching the headlines, I say all that to say, it almost feels like the people are saying World War III started and ended in the same week. And that's how crazy this is. And now the reports are saying the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei, basically the top guy, the final boss, the one person who has the last word on everything in that country, is dead. Allegedly killed in these strikes. And that's not some random official. That's not a senator. That's not a spokesperson. That's like if you woke up tomorrow and the president, the Supreme Court, and Congress were all wrapped into one person and that one person was gone. That's how big this is, family. So yeah, that's the headline. That's the bombshell. But before we get into what that means long term, we have to talk about the reactions, because reactions tell you everything. Reactions show you who's really mad, who's really celebrating, and who was pretending the whole time. And in my opinion, the reaction is sometimes more important than the strike itself. Because look at Venezuela, for example. When certain leaders fall or certain power shifts happen, you immediately see who's upset. And that tells you who benefited from the old system. Same thing here. Notice who's angry. Notice who's cheering. Notice who's suddenly quiet, because the media has been pushing stories all day saying that large numbers of Iranians are actually celebrating these strikes. And I need people to understand something simple. The Iranian government is not the same thing as the Iranian people. That's like confusing your boss with the employees. Just because the boss runs the company doesn't mean the workers love him. A lot of regular people in Iran have been dealing with strict rules, religious enforcement, economic problems, limited freedom, stuff that most Americans would never tolerate for 5 minutes. So when you see videos of people chanting in the streets, dancing, some even saying I love Trump, you have to understand what that signals, right? As you guys see the headline on the screen here. You have to understand what that signals. And that signals frustration that's been building for years. That signals people who feel like the guy at the top was the reason their lives were restricted. Now, are there people who support the government? Of course, every country has loyalists. Every system has people who benefit from it. There are always people who like the status quo because it works for them. But the fact that you're seeing visible public celebration tells you this isn't some tiny fringe group whispering in basements. This is people openly expressing relief, and that matters, because for years we've been told that if outside forces ever struck Iran, the entire country would unite in rage against America and Israel. That was the assumption. That was the narrative. And now you're seeing something way more complicated. You're seeing division. You're seeing a split between the government and a chunk of the population. And that changes the entire conversation because war isn't just bombs and missiles. War is morale. War is perception. War is who feels in power and who feels exposed. And if the top leader is gone, and again, allegedly, that's not just symbolic. That's a power vacuum. That's like knocking over the head coach in the middle of a championship game. And now everyone looking around is asking who's calling the plays. You know what I'm saying? That creates instability. It creates scrambling and scraping, I like to call it. And it creates opportunity. Now, I'm not saying everything is sunshine and rainbows, all right? That's why we just having a conversation. This is still serious. This is still dangerous. And this is still high stakes geopolitics. But what I am saying is the early reactions don't match the fear mongering script people were expecting. And that's why this story is moving so fast. Because if you were bracing for global chaos and instead you're seeing street celebrations in parts of Iran, that forces you to rethink what's actually happening inside that country. And again, pay attention to who's upset intentionally too. Because when certain governments or political figures immediately condemn something, you have to ask yourself, why? Right? The mic drop that I always tend to ask just by curiosity of the mind, because back then when it was important, it still is important and should be upheld in the school system, is critical thinking, right? So you have to ask why. But what were they getting out of the previous arrangement? And that's what I mean, because politics isn't complicated when you break it down. It's about power. It's about, I'm sure we know it as control. And it's about who benefits, of course. And if someone is furious that a regime just took a hit, you should probably ask what they had invested in that regime. That's just common sense. That's like if a corrupt manager at your job gets fired and one coworker is acting devastated, you're going to wonder what kind of side deal they had going on. Same logic here. So yeah, the headline is massive, as you guys see on the screen here, and it reads: Iranians chant and dance in the streets after U.S. Israeli airstrikes. I love Trump. So you guys see that, you hear that, and that's earth shaking. But the reaction might be even bigger, because it tells you this isn't just a clean good versus evil cartoon story. This is a country with internal frustration, external pressure, and a possible leadership void all colliding at once. And if you're just tuning in and you don't follow politics, here's the simple version. Imagine a strict principal running a school for decades, enforcing tough rules, controlling everything, and one day that principal is suddenly gone after outside intervention. Some students are terrified, some are loyal and angry, and some are literally cheering in the hallways. That's the dynamic we are watching right now, except on a global scale, obviously, with missiles involved. So before people jump to panic or victory laps, watch the people on the ground and watch who's celebrating, watch who's condemning, and that's the real story. That's where the real story is unfolding. So now that I ought to say that, I want you guys to see the people celebrating in the streets that I've been referring to. And give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe if you're new to the channel. If you are a part of the family, I appreciate you for rocking with me. Let's get into it. All right. So there you have it, family. There you have it. So let's really sit with this for a second. They are literally dancing in the streets. You guys just saw it. Not hiding, not whispering, not looking over their shoulder, dancing and celebrating, smiling, hugging each other. And this wasn't just one little this isn't just one little pocket somewhere. You're seeing imagery of Iranians across the world doing the same thing, right? Look at this. Look, I want you guys to check it out. Look at it. So, like I said, you are seeing the imagery for itself, right? I like to show the proof in the pudding. Across the world, people in other countries waving flags, crying, thanking the United States, thanking Israel. That's not small. That's not random. That tells you something real is going on. Because think about it. Nobody risks celebrating something like this unless they genuinely feel like a weight just got lifted off their back. People don't cheer for chaos. They cheer when they think something that was holding them down is finally gone. And when the reports came out, Khamenei was dead. The supreme leader, the top authority, the guy who had final say over the military, over the courts, over the rules of daily life. You had people openly cheering, as you just saw, openly. That's huge. Imagine if the strictest, most controlling boss you have ever had suddenly got fired. And instead of people being scared, the office starts clapping. They even have a party. That tells you how people really felt about him when he was in power, Khamenei. And you don't get that kind of reaction if the leader was universally loved. And I want to make this simple for people who don't follow the politics, right? The supreme leader in Iran isn't just some figurehead. He's not like a ribbon cutting politician. He's the ultimate authority, okay? Think of him like the owner of the company, the CEO, and the head of HR all in one. If he says something, that's it. That's the rule. So when someone like that is reportedly gone and people are celebrating, that's not about foreign policy. That's personal. That's everyday life stuff. That's women who felt restricted. And you don't have to take my word for it because I want you guys to see more of what's being shown of people cheering and celebrating amid reports of Khamenei's death, right? It's literally fireworks you guys are hearing. Like it's like 4th of July over there for Israel. Without it being July. And here goes some more. And here goes some more. People are literally shouting in relief and happy like they just won the lottery of their lives. So there you go, right? You get the gist of it. You get the gist. And what I want to say really is, this is why I say it's personal. This everyday that everyday life stuff of the woman feeling restricted. That's young people who felt censored. That's families who struggled under sanctions and economic problems and blamed the leadership. That's what you're watching. And then you got people outside the country, Iranians who left years ago expressing gratitude. That's another layer. Because when people leave their home country and still feel strongly enough to celebrate a political shift like this, that means the resentment didn't just disappear when they boarded a plane. It stayed with them. So when you see them thanking the United States and Israel, that's not about geopolitics to them. That's about what they believe might finally change for their families back home. All right. And that's what's important here. Now, does everyone feel that way? Obviously not. There are loyalists. There are people who supported the government. Every system has supporters. But the fact that you're seeing this level of open celebration right after the announcement, that's telling. That's emotional. That's raw. And when you hear the cheering, when you actually listen to it, it doesn't sound staged. It sounds like relief. It sounds like people who feel like something just shifted. And again, I need people to understand when leadership changes at the top of a country like that, it's not just political chess. It affects jobs, food prices, freedom of speech, what women can wear, what kids are taught in school. It affects everyday life. So when the reports drop and you see the people cheering, it's not them cheering for war. That's them reacting to what they believe is the end of a specific kind of rule. And whether people like it or not, that reaction is part of the story. You can't ignore it. You can't pretend it's not happening. The footage is there. The sound is there. The emotion is there. And that's why this moment feels so surreal. Because instead of the entire country erupting in unified outrage like many predicted, you're seeing visible division and in some places straight up celebration. And that alone changes the entire energy of this situation. So now let's check out what the Fox News had to say.
Andra, we just got this in literally 2 minutes ago, but Fox News can confirm that Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead following Israeli strikes against his compound and location earlier today. A senior Israeli official confirming this news. Earlier tonight, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu describing the strikes not only against the supreme leader, but against much of the Iranian leadership. We know the breakdown in strikes focused on leadership for the Israelis and military targets initially for the Americans, and has since expanded as this campaign is expected to continue in the days and possibly even weeks ahead. As we're looking at the current situation across the region, we're also gathering new information on what the Israelis have been doing against Iran. We are told from a military official that the largest Israeli Air Force sortie against any country in the world was conducted this morning with 200 Israeli fighter jets targeting 500 different locations, dropping hundreds of munitions on a variety of different targets inside of Iran. The Israelis, while they were going after leadership, were also looking to neutralize the incoming ballistic missile fire that has targeted their country throughout the day. Sirens sounded across Israel throughout the afternoon, sending millions of people into bomb shelters. But again, the takeaway here, the Israelis have killed Iran's supreme leader. That is being confirmed to Fox News by a senior Israeli official. John.
There you have it. And look, if these videos are legit that I'm showing, they're coming from legit outlets, obviously. And let's just call it what it is. These people are really, really thankful. They're not faking that kind of emotion. You can't fake that kind of cheering. You can't fake that kind of dancing. That's not actors reading cue cards. That's raw emotion. That's people who feel like something massive just happened in their favor. And again, if you got crowds in the street celebrating, waving flags, hugging each other after the reported death of the most powerful man in their country, that tells you something about how they felt about that man. It's not complicated. If your landlord who's been raising your rent every year suddenly loses control of the building and your people, you're outside high-fiving your neighbors, that says everything. People don't celebrate losing something they love. They celebrate losing something that was weighing on them. Now, where it gets wild is because while you're seeing some Iranians cheering, thanking the United States, thanking Israel, showing gratitude, back here in America, you got leftists and these black pill right wingers absolutely furious. I mean, mad, pounding sand, acting like this is the worst thing that's ever happened. And they are lined up right now alongside the mainstream liberal media, having a hissy fit over what the president in Israel decided to do. Think about how strange that looks. People inside the country that was supposedly attacked are celebrating, and people thousands of miles away sitting here enjoying the privileges of the United States of America. Thank God you don't have to be under that regime. who don't live under the Iranian government but live here in the United States, like I said, are more outraged than the folks who actually had to deal with it over there in Iran. Make that make sense, please. It's like if someone helps your neighbor finally get out from under a nightmare homeowners association fee, part of being in a neighborhood that has you know what a homeowner association is. Basically a neighborhood of houses under association altogether. But let's say the HOA president who finds everybody for that grass being half an inch too tall, and instead of the neighborhood being mad, they're throwing a block party. But some random people across town are screaming about how unfair it was to remove them, right? In this housing townhouse residential area. And you look at them sideways and you ask, wait, why are you upset? Did you benefit from that guy being in charge? And that's the question here. Why are certain groups in America more emotionally invested in defending the stability of that regime than people who lived under it? Now, and I already know what they'll say. They'll say escalation. They'll say international law. They'll say destabilization. Okay, cool. Big words. Word solid. But let's break that down in plain English. Escalation just means things could get bigger. International law means there are supposed to be rules countries follow. Destabilization means the power structure over there could get shaky. Fine. But here's the part they skip over. What about the people who felt trapped under that structure? What about the regular citizens who didn't feel free? Because when you see people celebrating the reported death of the most powerful authority in their country, that doesn't scream, we love the system. That screams, maybe now something changes. And the black pill crowd, the ones who think everything America does is automatically evil or pointless, they're acting like this is guaranteed doom. But I don't want you guys to take my word for it. I want you guys to check it out.
From the belly of the beast. From the belly of the beast. Hands of the Middle East. Hands of the Middle East. From the belly of the beast. From the belly of the beast. Hands of the Middle East. Hands of the Middle East. From the belly of the beast. From the belly of the beast. Hands of the Middle East. We want justice, you say how?
Stop bombing Iran now!
Stop bombing Iran now!
We want justice, you say how?
We want justice, you say how?
Hands off Iran now!
Hands off Iran now!
No war with Iran!
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 And so if you really did want the Iranian people themselves to rise up in some kind of popular uprising and totally change their form of government, if you wanted the beleaguered and oppressed Iranian people to organize very quickly into a new populist political force to rise up against, among other things, the security services there that have been massacring them by the thousands this month and last. If you wanted that to happen, you probably could have taken some steps to help that happening, to make sure they can organize and can communicate, right? Maybe you would have turned the internet back on. And when you, Donald Trump, in your baseball hat, proclaimed on that weird taped message today that the Iranian police and the security forces and the Revolutionary Guard must surrender, they must lay down their weapons.
Did she just say baseball hat? Because that is definitely a trucker hat. So busy talking about doom and gloom, can't even get your facts right on what hat he's wearing. Put some respect on it. I love that hat, man. Let's continue. Sorry, family. I got to call out the little stuff.
Donald Trump said this morning at 2:30, if that was what you wanted to happen, because you wanted the domestic security situation to become less dangerous for the Iranian people to rise up and overthrow their government, if you actually wanted to make that happen, instead of just saying it, you as the U.S. government, maybe you as the U.S. government in coalition with other allies that you might have bothered to bring on board, you might have given the Iranian police and Revolutionary Guard and security services some instructions on how to surrender and lay down their weapons. some path to do that, which Trump did not.
I just want to read what exactly the New York City mayor said. Today's military strikes on Iran, carried out by the United States and Israel, mark a catastrophic escalation in an illegal war of aggression. Bombing cities, killing civilians, opening a new theater of war. Americans do not want this. They do not want another war in pursuit of regime change. They want relief from the affordability crisis. They want peace.
Oh my God. I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. I live in New York, Mr. Mamdani. You are more than welcome to come to one of my safe house. You're more than welcome to come and see my would-be assassin in the federal court. You didn't even dare to come and face them. Where were you when they sent killers here in New York City? You were crying for your aunt because she stopped using subway for simply in an illusion statement you made saying that she didn't feel safe because of wearing hijab. Really? I stopped using subway because of the would-be assassins being sent to beautiful New York City by the Islamic Republic. I know maybe you and many other people, they hate President Trump, but believe me, this is not the right time to shift your hatred and your anger from President Trump to the people of Iran, innocent people. We are better allies to you, America, compared to these backward mullahs.
There you have it, folks. So they're acting like this is guaranteed doom, like it's automatically the apocalypse. But that's the same energy as someone who believes every storm means the world is ending. Sometimes storms clear the air, sometimes they don't. But you don't automatically declare that the planet is finished. In the mainstream media, you can almost feel the frustration through the screen because the expected script was outrage, unity against America, chaos in the streets. And instead, you got clips of people cheering. That disrupts the narrative. That complicates the outrage cycle. And when narratives get complicated, certain people get uncomfortable, right? And don't take my word for it. I want you guys to actually see how uncomfortable this woman got, as you guys see on the screen, with her flower on her head, having a tantrum, while others are cheering. Like I just said, here you have it. All right, so you guys get the point. And what I'm saying is, it complicates the narrative. As you see her crying outrageously, historically, only God knows what she's been through under that regime. And that's what makes it uncomfortable for people who's trying to basically create that outrage narrative that you guys seen on CBS and MS now, with Rachel Maddow. So now the conversation shifts to how reckless it was, how dangerous it was, to how irresponsible it was, without fully grappling the reality that you see these individuals over there in Iran, the people were actually dealt with, right? And they obviously need to touch grass and understand and get understanding to why the Iranian people were against their own government. And without these mainstream liberal media outlets grappling the idea of reality for the Iranian people, the people who supposedly being protected by outrage are the same ones dancing in the streets, is my point. And I'm not saying there aren't risks, right? Of course there are risks. This is global politics. This isn't a game of checkers. But what I am saying is the emotional reaction gap is glaring. Iranians celebrating, certain Americans furious. The contrast alone should make people pause and think instead of just repeating talking points, like Rachel Maddow. Because if the people who lived under that leadership are expressing relief, as you guys seen her basically crying to death because of how relief she feels, and they're doing the Trump dance, they are more respectful to your own president over here in the United States, and they're in their whole country in Iran, and they are grateful that the leader is no longer going in here. How can someone respect your president in power and the one who's running your country, that's in the outside country, more than you in the country that you're in? And it shows you how spoiled some Americans are. We can be brats. And like I said, we can be truly brats until we get treated the same way these individuals were, and then we'll be sitting here wishing and being grateful as they are for a president that's not theirs like Donald Trump. Now I have to mute the audio. I'm sure I'm a mute it as the clip begin because there is music playing, the YMCA song that Trump loves to play while he do the Trump dance. But here you go. So you guys see them doing it, and you can't make this stuff up. So all the Democrats saying, "Oh, Trump is trying to start a war. Trump is trying to do all this." Well, it seems like it seems like strength through peace to me, right? A lot of people get it messed up that I am a spiritual person. I don't put my faith onto people. I am a Christian, but the reality is, God did say that be prepared to have. He will prepare you basically to have train your hands to go to war. And there's a time for peace. There's a time for war. And there's a time for love, right? But the whole thing I say that to say is it's not saying that war should automatically be the move to take. You should negotiate, you should seek peace to the extreme point. But then when someone ties your hands and make it difficult for you to uphold peace, I mean, eventually you have to use your discernment and good judgment. That's why God is letting you know when there's a time for everything. You have to be wise within your time and how you utilize it, but also know when it needs to take place, on what needs to take place. And that's what discernment is. So now I want you guys to see, because the contrast alone makes people pause and think instead of just repeating the talking points. Because if the people who live there is expressing relief, maybe, just maybe, the story isn't as simple as American bad, full stop. Maybe there's more going on, and ignoring that part just makes it, ignoring that part just because it doesn't fit someone's political tribe doesn't make you principled. It makes you selective. And it's fascinating, right? Because history is repeating itself, but it's moving faster now because it's like the replay button is on 2 times X. And because just a month ago, you had the same crowd screaming, "No war with Venezuela, leave Maduro alone," while actually Venezuelans, real people who lived under that system, were out there celebrating, waving flags, thanking the president for removing the tyrant, a straight up authoritarian who crushed opposition and ran that country into the ground. And now fast forward a few weeks in the same movie with different actors, leftists, radical extreme leftists on the Democrat side whining. You got Kamala Harris crying and whining. You got Kamala Harris over here whining, talking about Trump is trying to send America into a war and drag into a war and all of this mess. When the reality is, you have to understand that countries do work together, and you have to understand that countries don't have to necessarily be walking step like hand in hand and be in a relationship to the point where it's just perfection. Because if that's the case, we wouldn't have trade-offs, right? For example, we trade resources to other countries who may lack resources that we have, and we give resources from other countries that we want extra of, but we shouldn't rely on those other countries, because then they can sit there and basically be the hand that feeds us those resources and cut it off when they get mad and have a tantrum. So we need to make sure everything is in with America and continue to be the leader, because the way the United States goes, other country goes, if people want to believe it or not. And that's just the truth. We are the leader, the head honchos of how the world and other countries basically revolve and how they continue to move in the directions they go in. And we can't rely on other countries if we are the head honcho over here in the United States. We have to lead appropriately. We have to lead righteously and rightfully so, and continue to be the example that we need to be, but also within the Western Hemisphere, and the treaty that we have with other countries and NATO. And the NATO is just a group of individuals who came together with other countries to say, hey, you the little brother, the United States is the big brother. You got Iran, the little brother. They may not have that much force to fight other people who are trying to take over their country, but we can work together and basically neutralize or get rid of the threat and be there for each other. And that's just the example of exchange of resources that go back to my first example with the trading, right? So what I'm saying is, at times, people need to realize that we are better together than apart, but we don't have to be the bestest of friends. But it could just be business. It's not feelings within it. Y'all benefit your country, you be able to thrive, and it benefits mine. But America shouldn't have to keep footing the bill to make sure you're protected either. Don't be acting foolish just because you spoiled just from the help that you're getting. There's no difference if you want to make this simple of you helping somebody and giving them a couple dollars, but that doesn't mean they're going to get off their behind and actually work to get something on their own or actually be successful. So they'd rather cry that they're suppressed or that the system, quote unquote, so-called, is suppressing them. When you over here in the United States of America, if you just get off your lazy behind and work, you will reap the rewards of what your hard work has given you. But if someone gives you money and you feel like I don't have to do nothing, then you can't expect to not be in the same position you are in. And it's the same way with America and other countries. And that's why we pulled out of NATO. NATO can be great in regards of it being basically a form of government or a form of coalition and coming together, which NATO is, of other countries in a treaty that we have with those countries that, hey, if you get bullied, we'll step in and help, but we're going to do this together. That's all NATO is, like I said. So, but it's not fair when NATO isn't doing their job in that department to make sure both countries are equally helping the little brother and the big brother, helping each other if the big brother is always fighting for the little brother. So you can't expect the little brother not to keep getting beat up, and then the big brother get exhausted. Like, bro, you need to defend. You need to stand up for yourself. So that's why we pulled out of NATO. So when you think of that, and Iran is needing help from within their own country from a dictator, and they can't do nothing about it because their hands tied. And if you say something, the dictator that's running their country is going to basically get rid of you, execute you, erase you. Well, they're basically they're basically censoring and muting lives of basically being able to protest, which is the privilege we have over here in America. We could cry, shout, protest, the whole nine. They can't do that over there in Iran, or they'll be executed. They'll be erased. So look at the free speech we have in America and look at the free speech they don't have over there in Iran, right? So I don't want you guys to take my word for it. I want you to show you guys this last video of how she really breaks down how it is basically living in Iran. And people want to continue to sit there and just run with a talking point saying, oh, we're going to World War III. But strength through peace just means, look, I'm fighting to defend my people, or I'm fighting to defend, in this case, us America. We're defending our little brother, in this case, Iran. And we are just defending the right thing in regards of people not being deleted because they have the different forms of opinion over there in their government. And then on top of that, they're trying to indoctrinate and train their people to erase America and then create a nuclear bomb to then erase in the name of their Islamic religion. Now, we have seen phases of that and glimpses of that with 9/11 back then, how extreme Islam can be when it comes to the terrorists, and they can literally ram a plane lifelessly and kill themselves out of a form of hatred towards America so much, where they don't want America to be here. They are very, how can I put this? They have so much vitriol and so much of a personal vendetta that they will rather sit there and retaliate and destroy America. And they just run the country and control Americans. Let alone let an American go over there and visit Iran. They'll hold them hostage. But watch what she say, and then I'll end it and close it here. Because as always, we having a conversation. I want to get you guys' thoughts down in the comments below.
The last videos I ever have to make about this terrorist regime that is on the verge of collapsing. But before we close out this chapter of doom, I do have to warn you about what's coming. First of all, this is not an attack. It is not an assault. It is not belligerence. It is not war. It is a rescue operation. It is not just a rescue operation of 90 million Iranians who overwhelmingly support the removal of this dictatorship. It is a rescue operation of the entire planet, of the Middle East, where this regime's proxies have terrorized from Israel to Gaza to Lebanon to Yemen to Syria to Iraq, of the Western world, where this regime has terrorized from Australia to Europe to the UK to the US. It is a freedom mission for humanity and democracy. That being said, it has never been more important to apply critical thinking. This regime is still engaging in a mind war to convince you otherwise. Anything that this regime reports has to be disregarded as unreliable. Why? Because there is no apparatus to confirm confirm anything that it reports. There is no apparatus for democracy, for veracity, for truth. There is just a propaganda arm. There is no free press. There is no free speech. Whatever tells you is a carefully constructed narrative that they've been building for weeks, months, if not years. Please think carefully. As soon as this regime's basis was struck, it didn't report back to Western media that its officials had been killed. It reported back that Iranian schoolgirls had been killed. Why not just say that 2,000 starving infants in an orphanage had been massacred? And that same Western media, the same Western media that ignored when tens and thousands of protesters were slain by this regime, were the first to report its lies. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Makes you wonder, what side does Western media stand on anymore? Are you on the side of freedom? Are you on the side of truth? Are you on the side of humanity? Are you on the side of democracy? Or are you on the side of the terrorists? And if you didn't understand just how depraved this regime is, then understand this. After it slaughtered tens and thousands of protesters, their family members told us that they never gave those bodies back. Why? So that they could repurpose them later and claim them as casualties of war. I promise you that you do not understand the scale of the operation that we are dealing with here. You do not understand the mind war. Forget what the mouthpieces are saying to you. This is a watershed moment in history. It is a rescue operation for not just 90 million Iranians, but for the Middle East and for the entire world. And I don't care where you have stood up until now. I don't care how many times you believed the lies. I don't care how many times you ignored our cries. I don't care how many times you ignored humanity. All is forgiven. All I ask is that you stand on the right side of history today, because this is our moment. This is our liberation movement. This is the Iranian Independence Day. So stand with us now.
There you have it, right? So you look at it when you see Democrats crying about the Iranian Supreme Leader, while actual Iranians are on camera, as you've seen, saying, no, this is good. We hated this guy. This regime was oppressive. We want freedom. And you're watching this disconnect happen in real time. And it's wild because it's almost like every time America hits a regime that has a track record of crushing its own people, the loudest outrage doesn't come from the citizens who suffered under it. It comes from the activists sitting comfortably in the United States. And at some point, you got to call that pattern for what it is. And let's keep it 100. These folks claim they care about human rights. They talk about genocide, oppression, humanitarian crisis all day long. But when it's a regime that's anti-US, anti-West, and I'm talking about the Western Hemisphere, anti-capitalism, suddenly the energy shifts. Suddenly the outrage is aimed at America instead of the dictator. And that tells you something, because if tens of thousands of protesters were reportedly jailed, beaten, and even executed, as you heard her say, under an Islamic regime, if women were restricted, speech was controlled, dissent was punished, and then that leadership gets hit, and some of the very people who lived through that are celebrating, why are you more upset than they are? It's like watching someone finally get out of an abusive relationship, and instead of supporting them, you're mad at the person who helped them leave. It doesn't add up unless your issue isn't actually about the abuse. It's about who did the intervening. And I'm serious when I say people should question that reflex, where every single time the United States takes foreign action, the first instinct is to side emotionally against America, even before all the facts settle. All I'm saying is, let the facts come out before you make your emotional opinion. Be very objective, and I've been very objective here about this situation, taking feelings out of it, and even before we see all the full outcomes, these individuals emotionally respond with the fear mongering stuff, right? And that's not an analysis. When you see those networks, mainstream liberal networks like CNN, MSNBC, now known as MS Now, ABC, CBS, that's bias. That's tribal. That's America bad no matter what attitude. And I'm not built like that, because in my first reaction, I'll say, wait and see. I'm not popping champagne. I'm not doom posting either. I'm saying, let's watch how this plays out, because sometimes these operations go well, sometimes they don't. But this administration has earned a wait and see approach. And it goes back to my Christian values. Like I said, you seek peace first. You negotiate, your best to come to a resolution. But at some point, something has to be done if it's just as extreme as this. And you have to really give applause to President Trump, the Department of War, Pete Hegseth, in regard to how they're doing things, right? It gives a Christian approach, which is the Christian values that America actually stood for. It was made on a Christian value basis um, foundation, the United States of America. But they have a wait and see approach based on how precise and efficient these operations have been. And if the reports are true that the Ayatollah is actually dead, that sends a message, not a cute message, not a PR statement, a real message that the United States military can reach high level targets anywhere on the planet. And that matters on the world stage, whether people like it or not, because powers in international politics is like reputation in a tough neighborhood. If someone knows you can defend yourself and you will act, fewer people will test you. And if everyone thinks you're hesitant and afraid, more people push the line. And I don't want America shrinking back while China and Russia expands its influence. And I don't want us handing over global leadership because we're scared of criticism from people who already hate the United States of America. I want America successful. I am pro America. And I want the president successful, whoever the president may be. Because when a country is strong, that strength detours conflict more than weakness ever could. That's why peace through strength is important. And it's ironic that the same people who say they want peace get furious when decisive action potentially prevents a bigger war down the line. Because sometimes showing capability early stops escalation later. It's just basic common sense. It's like putting up a strong fence so you don't have to fight off intruders every week and again. None of this means that there aren't risks. None of this means you shut your brain off. It means you evaluate results. You look at who's reacting, how, and you notice that in both Venezuela and now in Iran, segments of the population directly affected are celebrating while American activists are melting down. And that contrast should at least make you pause and think, who's actually on the side of the people versus who's just reflectively anti-American power. Because at some point the mask slips, and you see that for some of these folks, and it's not about human rights, it's about opposing the United States no matter what. And that's not a serious position, that's an emotional one. So with that said, um, that's what we're actually dealing with here, right? And I know people have feelings, strong feelings, opinions all over the place, but I'm just talking about what we've seen with our own eyes in this video, right? The tag team between the United States and Israel is serious. It's efficient. It's calculated. It's not sloppy. It's not random. When those two coordinate on a military operation, it's not chaos. It's precision. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend otherwise just to make people comfortable. If you really don't want to get sideways with the United States and Israel when it comes to military capability, because the way these operations are conducted, it's surgical. It's like watching two elite teams run a play and they practice 1,000 times. No confusion, no fumbling, just execution. And that's exactly what this looked like. Now, let's be honest about something else. The objective here was regime change. The president said it. He didn't dance around it. He didn't hide it behind cute language. He didn't say limited kinetic engagement or some polished PR phrase. He was upfront. This is about removing leadership, period. And I actually respect that because at least he's not treating the public like we're stupid. At least he's not pretending this was about something small when it clearly wasn't. And when you tell people straight up what the goal is, now we can have a real conversation as we are now in this video. Now we can decide, do you support that or not? You going to get with this or you going to get with that? But don't lie to me and don't sell me a defensive posture adjustment when you clearly are going after the head of the snake. And that's what this was. They weren't aiming at random targets. They were going after the top. The leadership, the decision makers, the people calling the shots. And if the reports are accurate, now even the president is coming out saying the U.S. believes he's dead, then they accomplished the mission. That's not speculation anymore. That's confirmation from the top. And think about what that means in simple terms. If you're trying to change how a system operates, you don't start with the receptionist, you go after the CEO. You don't fire the interns and hope the culture magically fixes itself. You remove the person set in the direction. That's basic logic. And that's what this operation appears to have done. So again, whether someone personally likes Israel or not, whether someone feels emotional about foreign policy or not, you cannot deny what this signals from a capability standpoint. It signals coordination. It signals intelligence dominance. It signals that when these two decide to move, they move with intent. And if you're another hostile regime watching this unfold, you should be taking notes, and I believe you are taking notes, and you're realizing that geography doesn't protect you. Titles don't protect you. Being untouchable, quote unquote, doesn't mean untouchable. That's a loud message. And the fact that the president isn't playing coy about it, he's saying, yes, we believe he's dead, tells you this wasn't accidental. This wasn't collateral. This was targeted. And that's what regime change looks like when it's direct. And you have to understand, President Donald J. Trump is not running a hair salon. He's running the country. Right? And what true leadership is thinking very, very long term and making decisions that some people may not like, but for the best interest. See, the Bible says, and I always resort back to scripture or what I recall, God will prepare you with the hands of war and train you, to defend individuals coming after you from a spiritual warfare standpoint. You know, as she mentioned, you know, the mouthpiece is playing games and lying to you and trying to manipulate you and gaslight you to believe something that's not true. And you have to do a lot of critical thinking in your own research and wait for the facts to come out, because deception is real, right? That's why it's a time for love, a time for peace, a time to fight, a time for wars, things like that. But I say all that to say that God trains your hands for war to defend the righteous, to defend what's right, and to defend your people. And that's what the characteristics of a true leader should uphold. And that's what I believe President Donald J. Trump is upholding. Now, people could debate whether regime change is good or bad in general. That's a separate conversation, but don't act confused about what just happened, because the objective was leadership removal, and they went after leadership, and it was confirmed. And they got it done. And that's clarity, that's execution. And that's why this whole world is paying attention right now. So I'm gonna leave it there, family. Hope you guys got some value from this video and learned something, which is my goal, and to understand that politics affects your life, whether you want to believe it or not. And if you're not in tune, I'm here to basically catch you up so you can understand how it affects you, and not only affects you, but this country, because the way in the direction that this country moves, the rest of the world moves, and also your family, your family's family, your children, and it also impacts everyone living in it. And the only way to actually make sure it's going in the right direction is actually cooperating and getting the truth of viable knowledge to participate, so you can make sure everything is righteously going right on the right side of history as we live in it. So on that note, family, let the love supersede the hate. Spread the peace, love, and positivity. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.